My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with him. Now she's suing me for half the property I inherited from my grandmother, claiming I'm hiding assets. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, laying it all out. Honestly, the most shocking part wasn't just discovering that my wife had been sleeping with my best friend Jake. It was the fact that she stole $250, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with him. Yeah, she's been lying, cheating, and scheming right under my nose, and I only caught on because of a series of small, seemingly unrelated clues that added up to a brutal betrayal. It started about 6 months ago. Had been acting a little different, more irritable, less affectionate, and totally dismissive of my concerns about her mood swings. She'd snap at me over nothing, and I noticed her phone was always locked, even when she was around me. She'd hide it when I came into the room and quickly swipe away her messages. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed at work, or maybe she was hiding a surprise for my birthday, but I should have known better. Then came the late nights. She tell me she was working late, but I'd come home early sometimes and her car was still gone. I'd check her phone records and I saw a lot of late-night calls and texts to someone named Jay. I didn't think much of it at first. People talk to friends after hours, right? But then I noticed the pattern. Every time claimed she was working late, she'd be chatting with Jay, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning. One night I decided to follow her. I didn't want to spy, but I was just curious. I followed her to a fancy apartment downtown, one I'd never seen before. She went inside with a bag of takeout and I saw her kiss someone goodbye through the window. It was definitely Jake. My stomach dropped. I felt numb. I didn't want to believe it, but there they were, sneaking around like they had something to hide. That was when I started digging deeper. I pulled her phone records, checked the bank statements. And that's when I saw the real punch to the gut. Over the past few months had transferred huge sums of money, more than I ever imagined, into a separate account. The total, about $250, $0. I couldn't believe it. She'd been funneling money out of our joint account to buy a house with Jake. And the most brutal part, the house was in her name, but I found out she was planning to sue me for half of the property I inherited from my grandmother, claiming I was hiding assets. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach 100 times. I had no idea she'd gone this far. I confronted her the next day. I told her I knew everything about the affair, the money, the house. Her reaction, she laughed. Said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because Jake was a better man than me. She called me insecure, accused me of snooping because I didn't trust her. That was her go-to excuse: you don't trust me, that's why you're spying. But I wasn't stupid. I knew she'd lied about everything, and I felt sick that I'd been so blind. The emotional has been intense. I went from feeling shock and anger to deep sadness, then to a kind of numbness. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let this happen. The betrayal stung worse than anything I've ever experienced. I thought I knew her. I thought we had a good life. But she'd been planning this behind my back, lying about her feelings, and now she was trying to take what was mine, my inheritance, my house, everything I thought I had built with her. The worst part, she's still denying everything. She insists she loves me, says she's confused, and that I'm overreacting. She claims she's innocent, that I'm just jealous and paranoid. Meanwhile, she's already moved into the new house with Jake, and they're planning to sue me for half of everything I own, my grandmother's inheritance, which I inherited free and clear. She's trying to turn the tables, claiming I'm hiding assets and that I'm a bad husband. I don't even recognize her anymore. It's like I married a stranger, someone I don't even know. I honestly don't know what to do next. Part of me wants to fight her. In court, expose her lies and make sure she doesn't get away with stealing from me. Part of me just wants to walk away, forget the whole thing, and rebuild my life from scratch. But I know one thing: I'm not going to let her get away with this. I deserve justice, and I'll make damn sure she pays for what she's done. If anyone out there has been through something similar, I'd really appreciate any advice. I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of betrayal and confusion, and I don't know how to come out of this without losing myself completely. After I confronted that day, Everything changed, at least, that's how it felt at first. She spun her usual stories, crying, pleading, claiming she was confused, that she didn't mean for any of this to happen. She insisted she loved me, that she was just going through a rough patch, and that Jake was just a distraction. She said she never intended to hurt me, that it was all a mistake, and begged me to forgive her. Honestly, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, it was all some terrible misunderstanding, but deep down I knew better. The evidence was there, her texts, the bank transfers, the house plans. She had planned this for months, maybe longer. Still, I was so stunned that I let her talk, let her cry and explain. I didn't yell at her right away. I was too numb. Instead, I just sat there, listening to her lies, feeling like I was watching a bad movie I couldn't turn off. My mind kept racing, trying to process what this all meant. How could someone I trusted so completely turn out to be the villain in my own life? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling around her words, her tears, the way she'd looked at me with that fake innocence. I kept remembering those late nights when she was supposedly working, the secret calls, the way she'd hide her phone when I walked into the room. It all clicked into place, like puzzle pieces I'd refused to see before. She'd been planning this for a long time, probably even before she started acting distant. The worst part was knowing she'd lied to me every step of the way. I started thinking about the money. How? She drained our joint account of $250, $0. That's a lot of money, especially for someone who always acted like she was just scraping by. She told me she wanted to buy a house for us, but instead she bought one with Jake. I felt betrayed, furious, and sick all at once. I had worked hard for that money. It was supposed to be our future, our safety net. Now she'd taken it and used it to run off with her lover. And to make it worse, she was planning to sue me for half of the house I inherited from my grandmother, claiming I was hiding assets. That was her big move, try to take what she thought she could get. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I started talking to a lawyer the next day. It was a weird feeling, like I was finally taking control after feeling so helpless. The lawyer told me I had a solid case, especially with the evidence I had. But even as I was planning my next move legally, I felt a deep sense of loss. I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, and I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Meanwhile, kept up her act, trying to manipulate me with her tears and fake remorse. She'd call me crazy for suspecting her, say I was just jealous of Jake, and accuse me of trying to control her. She even tried to gaslight me, claiming I was unreasonable for being upset about her affair and the money. It made me realize how skilled she was at lying and twisting things to her advantage. She's always been bitchy, quick to blame others, and never accepts responsibility. That's part of what made this so hard to believe. I also discovered that she'd been secretly talking to Jake about the inheritance, trying to figure out how to get her hands on it. She wanted her own house, her own life, and she was willing to lie, cheat, and steal to get it. I found emails where they discussed how to hide her assets, how to make it look like I was hiding money, and how to make the court believe she was the innocent victim. It was sickening. I never thought I'd be betrayed like this by someone I loved, especially not by who always acted like she was the bitchy wife, but never in a million years would I have thought she'd do something this cruel. The emotional toll has been brutal. I've gone from feeling numb to feeling pure rage, then to sadness again. I keep asking myself how I let this happen, how I missed all the signs. I trusted her. I believed in us. And now I feel like I've been duped, used, and tossed aside. The worst part is knowing she's already moved into the new house with Jake, and I'm left here with nothing but the wreckage of what we had. I didn't even get a chance to fight for it, not really. She was always one step ahead. Now, I'm trying to piece my life back together. I've cut off contact with her for now. I'm focusing on gathering all the evidence I need for court, and I'm working on mental clarity. It's hard to stay sane when someone you love turns out to be so manipulative and selfish. But I also realize I need to protect what's left of my dignity and my assets. She's trying to paint herself as the victim, but I know the truth, and I'll make sure the truth comes out in court. To anyone reading this who's been betrayed like I have, I'll say this: trust is fragile. Watch the signs. Don't ignore the little things because they add up. And most importantly, protect yourself emotionally and financially. Because when someone you love turns out to be a liar and a thief, it leaves a scar you'll carry forever. But you can survive it. You just have to be willing to fight for what's right. After I started taking serious steps to handle everything, I realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. Lies weren't just about the affair or the money, they extended into every part of our life. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. I found emails, text messages, and bank statements that painted a clear picture. She had been systematically siphoning off our savings, hiding assets, and even talking about how to manipulate the court if it ever came to a legal battle. The day I found out she'd already bought the house with Jake was a shock I can't even put into words. I knew they'd been planning it, but seeing the documents, the mortgage, the transfer of funds, it was like getting punched again, only this time in the gut. The house was in her name, in Jake's name, and she'd already moved in. Meanwhile, I was here, still trying to process what I'd just learned, feeling like I'd been played for a fool. I immediately contacted my lawyer. It was surreal. I'd never needed a lawyer before, and suddenly I was immersed in legal jargon and court procedures. I had to gather every piece of evidence I could: bank statements, emails, texts, anything that proved she'd stolen from us and was planning to take my inheritance. I also hired a private investigator to track down her financial activities more thoroughly. Turns out, she'd been funneling money into offshore accounts, hiding assets, and even trying to buy property in her own name under various aliases. Her reaction to my confrontation was classic: denial, deflection, accusations. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I was just jealous of Jake. She claimed she loved me, that she'd never cheat, and that I was making everything up. She even tried to turn the tables, saying I was the one hiding assets, that I was controlling and suspicious. The more she lied, the more furious I became. It was clear she was trying to manipulate the situation, to make me look like the bad guy so she could keep what she stole. What cut the deepest was how she was so dismissive of my feelings. I told her how much her betrayal hurt, how it shattered everything I thought we had, and she just rolled her eyes, called me weak, and said I was overreacting. She threw in some classic insults, saying I was pathetic for not trusting her, as if her cheating and theft were just innocent mistakes. That's when I realized that's version of love was just a game to her, a game where she always came out on top, no matter who she hurt. The emotional impact hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt angry, betrayed, humiliated. I kept asking myself where I went wrong. I was furious at Jake for being such a scumbag, and for being so selfish. I couldn't understand how someone I loved could be so manipulative, so heartless. I had trusted her, shared everything with her, and she'd been planning her escape right under my nose. Every time I thought about the money she stole, I'd get this sick feeling in my stomach. It wasn't just about the cash. It was about the betrayal of everything I believed in, everything I thought we were. I also felt a deep sadness. I kept replaying our memories, how she used to be warm, affectionate, how we'd planned our future. Now, all I could see were lies and deception. It was like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again, or if I'd carry this bitterness with me forever. The worst part was knowing that she had already moved on, that Jake was living in what was supposed to be my home, and I was left with nothing but the wreckage of our life together. Despite everything, I knew I had to stay strong. I told myself I wouldn't let her get away with it. I was determined to fight her in court, to prove that she'd committed fraud and theft. I started documenting everything: the financial transactions, her communications with Jake, her plans to hide assets. I also reached out to friends and family for support, though most of them were shocked and angry too. Nobody believed could be so ruthless, but the evidence was irrefutable. In the midst of all this chaos, I also started reflecting on myself. I wondered how I'd let her get this far. I blamed myself for not noticing sooner, for not seeing the signs. But then I realized something important. Love and trust are fragile, yes, but people's true nature eventually reveals itself. I learned that I can't ignore the red flags anymore. I have to trust my instincts and protect myself. I also learned that sometimes, the only way to deal with a betrayal this deep is to fight back and rebuild, stronger and wiser. Right now, I'm still in the thick of things, preparing for court, gathering evidence and trying to stay sane. It's exhausting, but I know I have to keep going. I won't let her steal what's rightfully mine, my inheritance, my dignity, and my peace of mind. I hope that someday I can look back on this nightmare and say I survived, that I came out the other side stronger. But for now, I'm just taking it one day at a time, trying to keep my head clear and my heart from turning bitter. If anyone out there has gone through something similar, I'd love to hear how you managed to pick yourself up afterward. The more I dug into his financial mess, the more I realized just how deep her deception went. She'd been meticulously hiding her tracks, transferring money offshore, setting up fake accounts, and even manipulating legal documents to make it look like she owned nothing. I found emails where she discussed with Jake how to hide the assets, how to make everything look legit, and how to prepare for the inevitable court battle. It was like watching a crime unfold in real time, only it was my life being stolen right in front of me. One of the most shocking discoveries was a series of encrypted emails she'd exchanged with Jake. They talked about the big move, buying the house, splitting the proceeds, and how to handle the legal fallout if I ever found out. They had a whole plan and was so confident she'd get away with it. She even had a lawyer friend in her back pocket, someone she'd reached out to for advice on hiding assets and avoiding detection. That's when it hit me. This wasn't some impulsive affair. It was a carefully orchestrated scheme built on lies, greed, and betrayal. I decided I needed evidence that could stand in court. I hired a private investigator, someone who specialized in financial crimes, and he uncovered even more dirt. It turned out had opened multiple offshore accounts, some in the Caribbean under fake names. She'd been funneling money into these accounts for months. She'd also been trying to buy property in her own name, trying to make it look like she was just a hard-working woman trying to get ahead. But the truth was, she was trying to hide her assets so she could take half of everything I inherited from my grandmother, a house that meant a lot to me. Meanwhile, kept up her act, trying to gaslight me into doubting what I knew. She'd say I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of things she didn't do, that I was just jealous of Jake. She spun stories about how she loved me, how she was confused, and how she never meant to hurt me, but her words felt hollow, like they came from someone who had long since stopped caring about the truth. I could see through her lies now. The I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold, calculating, and willing to do anything for money. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I'd gone from feeling numb to furious to hopeless. I kept asking myself how I had been so blind, how I missed all the signs. I trusted her with everything, my heart, my future, my savings, and she just used that trust as a weapon against me. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover. Every time I thought about the money she'd stolen, I felt a mixture of rage and despair. She'd taken what was supposed to be our security, our future, and turned it into a weapon to destroy me. The worst part was knowing she was already living in that new house with Jake. She moved out of our home, leaving me behind to pick up the pieces. The house I inherited from my grandmother, a place I'd always loved, was now her new home. I kept thinking about how she'd manipulated everyone around. Her telling friends she was saving herself or that I was abusive, when in reality she was just a thief and a liar. That's when I realized I had to fight her legally. I couldn't let her get away with this. I needed to expose her lies, prove her theft, and get back what's mine. I also began to understand that trust, once broken this badly, is almost impossible to repair. Had shown her true colors, and I knew I couldn't just forgive and forget. I had to stand up for myself, for my rights, and for the future I still deserved. I started preparing all the evidence I could gather, emails, bank statements, witness testimonies, and I made a plan to go to court. I wasn't just fighting for my property. I was fighting to reclaim my dignity, my reputation, and my peace of mind. I've learned some hard lessons through all of this. Never ignore the little things, those small signs of dishonesty or disrespect. they often add up over time. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to fix. And most importantly, always protect your assets. I never thought I'd need to worry about my inheritance being stolen from me, but here I am, fighting to keep what's rightfully mine. Right now, I'm in the thick of it, working with lawyers, gathering evidence, and trying not to let the emotional weight crush me. It's exhausting, but I know I have to keep going. I refuse to let or Jake win this. I want to see justice served, not just for me, but as a warning to anyone who thinks they can cheat their way through life and get away with it. If I can survive this, anyone can. And I hope that sharing my story helps others see the signs early, stand up for themselves, and never let someone take everything from them without a fight. The legal process has been and honestly, I wasn't prepared for how draining it would be emotionally and financially. Every day, I wake up wondering if I did the right thing by even trying to fight back. Of course, continued her lies, trying to spin the story that I was the bad guy, claiming I was trying to hide assets, accusing me of being abusive and paranoid just to distract from her own guilt. She's been relentless in her attempts to paint herself as the victim, even though the evidence clearly shows she's the perpetrator. My lawyer advised me to stay calm and let the court handle her manipulations. Still, it's hard not to feel angry every time I see her face on the other side of the courtroom, spinning her web of lies. She's doing everything she can to delay the proceedings, filing motions, trying to get her lawyer to dismiss evidence, and even claiming I'm harassing her. It's so transparent. She's just trying to buy time and make me doubt myself. But I refuse to back down. This is about justice, and I've got enough proof to make her pay for what she's done. As I compiled more evidence, I uncovered even more disturbing details. Had been talking to Jake about how to split the assets, how to make it look like she wasn't the one stealing, and how to protect herself from any legal fallout. She'd even tried to open a new bank account under a different name, hoping to hide the remaining money she hadn't yet transferred offshore. It's sickening to think she'd go that far, lying, cheating, stealing, just to get what she wants. I started to see her as a con artist, not the woman I'd married. On top of the legal battle, I had to deal with the fallout among friends and family. Some believed her, some believed me, but most were shocked that she'd be so ruthless. I lost a few friends who couldn't believe someone they knew could do something so terrible. But I also gained some new allies, people who saw through her lies and supported me. It's funny how betrayal can reveal who your real friends are. It's also made me realize I need to surround myself with people who are honest and trustworthy. Emotionally, I've been all over the place. There are days I feel hopeful, thinking I might get some justice, and days I feel exhausted, wondering if all this pain is worth it. I've been seeing a therapist to help me process everything, because the anger and sadness can be overwhelming. I've learned that it's okay to feel broken sometimes, but I also have to keep pushing forward. I can't let her win, not just legally but in my own mental health. I've started focusing on rebuilding my life one step at a time. One thing that's become clear is how much I underestimated her. Always seemed like she was bitchy, but I never thought she'd be capable of this level of deception and greed. It's a wake-up call. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to pay attention to the red flags that I ignored in the past. I also realize I need to be more careful with my assets and keep better track of my financial situation. This experience has taught me that you can't be too cautious, even with someone you love. Right now, I'm just trying to stay focused. The court date is approaching, and I feel a mixture of anxiety and determination. I want her to understand that betrayal has consequences. I want her to know I'm not going down without a fight. I've already lost so much: my trust, my peace of mind, my sense of security. But I still have my dignity. I won't let her take that from me. If anyone reading this has been through something similar, I'll say this: document everything. Keep every email, every bank statement, every text. It all adds up. And don't be afraid to seek help, whether from friends, family, or professionals. You don't have to go through this alone. Justice might take time, but it's worth fighting for. Because in the end, no amount of money or lies can replace the truth. And I know that eventually I'll come out of this stronger, maybe, but still standing. The court date finally arrived after months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and emotional exhaustion. Walking into that courtroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I knew I had done everything I could to prove lies and theft, and dread because I wasn't sure how she'd spin her story once she was under oath. Looked confident, as usual, smug even, trying to act like she was the innocent victim. But I knew better. I had the evidence and I was prepared to fight for what was rightfully mine. The proceedings were intense. This lawyer tried every trick in the book, trying to discredit my evidence, questioning my motives, and painting her as a misunderstood victim of circumstance. But I had the proof: bank statements, emails, offshore account details, and witness testimonies. I saw sweat under pressure, her facade cracking just a little when the judge pressed her about the offshore accounts and her attempts to hide assets. It was satisfying knowing that the truth was finally coming out. As the judge reviewed the evidence, lies began to unravel. Her stories didn't hold up. The court saw her for what she was: a manipulative, greedy woman who'd betrayed her vows and stolen from her own family. When the judge finally rendered the verdict, it was a moment I won't forget. I was awarded full custody of the inheritance, the house, and a significant portion of the stolen funds. Was ordered to pay restitution for the money she'd taken and was barred from claiming any rights to the property I inherited from my grandmother. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Tried to appeal, but her attempts were futile. The court had seen through her lies and her reputation took a serious hit. She was left with nothing: no house, no money, and no way to undo the damage she'd caused. Jake disappeared from the scene, probably realizing he'd been played too, and I felt a strange sense of closure. It was over and I could finally start to rebuild. The hardest part wasn't the legal victory, it was the emotional toll. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved, someone I thought I knew. I had to learn how to trust myself again, how to pick up the pieces of a life shattered by greed and deception. I cut ties with entirely. I changed my locks, moved out of the house, and started focusing on my healing. I sought therapy, reconnected with friends, and slowly I found a way to move forward. Looking back, I realize I've learned some vital lessons. Never ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone. Trust your instincts and keep your financial affairs in check. People can surprise you in the worst ways, so always be cautious. And most importantly, never let betrayal define you. I could have crumbled, let bitterness consume me, but instead I chose to fight back. That's what saved me. Now I'm rebuilding my life. I've started saving again, investing in myself and focusing on what truly matters: my peace of mind and my future. The scars are still there, but they remind me of how far I've come. I've come out stronger, wiser, and more aware. I want others to know that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. Justice can be served. Trust can be repaired and life can go on. Sometimes you just have to fight for it, no matter how hard it gets.